Alright, midlife crisis checklist. What all do I need to do? Number one, I need to buy some really tacky clothes that I'm going to wear regardless of what people tell me. I do love my old man hat. Number two, I need some sort of dramatic career change. I did start my new job earlier this month. Number three, I'm going to need to injure myself on a regular basis doing relatively benign and basic things like walking across the room, and to be honest, I'm already there as well. Is there anything else? Oh, I know. I could start a niche YouTube channel to allow me to go on long-winded pedantic rants about my favorite subjects for no apparent reason. Actually, I'm 3 years ahead of the game on that one. What else can I do to really get this midlife crisis off to a good start? I know! I could take the test of the Starstone! Today, we're going to talk about how to design a deity for your Pathfinder 2nd Edition games on today's episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I am a storyteller that is turning 40 today. That's not even a joke, it is my birthday and I am 40 years old. Unless you're one of my patrons, in which case you're seeing this video a week early, but that pitch comes later. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to a discussion about how to design your own deities for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The legend goes that on the 31st of Eridus, AR 4723, a mild-mannered Starstone applicant by the name of Cladis Pretium made his official attempt to ascend the Starstone Tower, and while no official record of his success has been recorded as of yet, today we're going to take a look at what Cladis Pretium could look like were he statted up as an official deity for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We're going to base this write-up on the different elements presented in the books Lost Omen Gods of Magic and the new book Rage of Elements, and talk about the various items that you would want to include if you were designing a new deity, and this video is largely intended for storytellers who want to play around with, well, some of the most powerful players of their campaign setting. Obviously, the deity being designed for this video is me just having some fun with the fact I'm turning 40 years old. But by all means, if you want to use this deity, have at it. I think it would be hilarious. However, the goal of this video is to highlight the different things that you want to consider if you're a storyteller who is looking at writing a deity into your setting. By the way, if you enjoy this video, please remember to do all of the YouTube stuff that helps support the channel. You can like, share, and subscribe. You can check out my free Discord and my Patreon. And since it's my birthday, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about my Patreon. I don't push my Patreon very heavily on this channel because honestly I consider my YouTube channel to be a side hustle, if you will. This is something I'm mostly doing for fun, and if it brings in a little cash, that's cool too. But on my Patreon there are 3 different tiers at $3, $9, and $15, though to be honest, you pretty much get the full experience at $3. And what I try to do with my Patreon is offer early access to the videos that go up on this channel. In addition to that, you also get your name in the credits of my videos, and you get access to a patron-only channel on my Discord server. For the most part, I view my Patreon as mainly just a way for people to offer a small amount of support if they really like what I do on this channel. But I will let you know that going into next year, I do hope to expand on my Patreon a little bit. I've already started working on a project that I am roughly slating for playtest release around next summer. where I am hoping to do some playtesting on a supplemental book that I intend to write for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And starting around January, my patrons will be the first people that I will be bringing into that conversation. So like I said, I don't push my Patreon a lot because this really is just a hobby plus in my mind. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon, the links are in the video description. But with all of that out of the way, let's get started on our design of Cladis Pretium, the god of the midlife crisis. By the way, real quick, I would just like to give a shout out to one of the players at my table and my good friend Megan for helping to inspire the idea for my birthday video this year. Broadly speaking, when you set out to design a deity in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can kind of look at the process as being split into two major halves. One half focuses more on the flavor and thematic elements associated with the deity you're designing, and then the second portion, the Devotee Benefits section, focuses on some of the mechanical options associated with player characters, especially clerics, that might choose to follow that deity. Let's start with the flavorful or thematic half, talking about Cladis Pretium, who became a Starstone applicant because, honestly, he became bored and frustrated with his day job. Terrified at the prospect of being eternally captured in the doldrums of middle management, Cladis began the process of training for the test of the Starstone in hopes of doing something truly monumental with the back half of his life. Should Cladis Pretium succeed in the test of the Starstone, like any other deity, he will achieve some sort of title that helps to denote how he is seen among his faithful. I have chosen to label my deity as Cladis Pretium, the Aged Wanderer. The next thing I need to pick is the holy symbol for my deity, and what better holy symbol could there be for the deity of the midlife crisis than the Project Car? So we'll just slap that up there, and that's what we're going to go with. The next thing that we need to pick are the areas of concern for Cladis, and we're going to go with the obvious midlife crises, as well as career changes and the concept of personal legacy. Now, one of the most significant sections of any deity write-up in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the Edicts Anathema that a deity expects for their followers. In this case, I'm going to write 3 Edicts Anathema for Cladis. Under Edicts, the first is going to be seek new experiences and challenges, followed by make new memories, and finally, create a legacy. As for Anathema, Cladis would warn his followers against staying in place out of personal comfort, changing your plans due to the mockery or criticism of others, and then finally, allowing the fear of death to hinder your dreams. With these Edicts and Anathema, I'm trying to paint the picture of the major goal for the deity I'm designing, in this case, encapsulating Cladis Pretium as overseeing the broad spectrum of the reactions that people have to their midlife crisis, both the good and sometimes ill-advised effects of those who make major changes at the midpoint of their life's journey. Now, this is not strictly necessary, but if you're looking at some of the design elements included in Lost Omens, Gods, and Magic, another thing that is often included are aphorisms or common sayings of a particular deity or church that help to encapsulate the message of that deity. So I run an aphorism for Cladis in this moment. Do not face the reaper meekly. The idea simply is this: the Church of Cladis Pretium does not teach its followers to try to avoid death, but rather to make sure that the life that they live is exciting, interesting, even dramatic, up until the moment of death itself. Now, in this particular section, once you move past Edicts and Anathema and maybe even the aphorisms, really you're just getting into a lot of the flavorful aspects of the deity in your setting, and the amount of detail you want to go into here is entirely up to you, but I did look at some of the details included in Lost Omens, Gods, and Magic in order to help exemplify the process. One of the things that you might want to detail are the typical worshippers of your deity. In the case of Cladis Pretium, as the deity of the midlife crisis, most of his worshippers are going to be middle-aged individuals. Also, as a deity that oversees major moments of change in a person's life, his worshippers will commonly include those who are going through major career changes or trying out something new. And if you want to put that in game terms for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, that means that his church would attract a lot of people who are taking archetype or multi-class dedications in order to expand their skill sets and experiences. A final group that finds the Church of Cladis Pretium to be appealing would be all sorts of low-level craftsmen because they want to try their hand at designing something of their own. Stepping past worshippers, you can also go into some of the details surrounding the typical temple or church of a deity, and in the case of Cladis Pretium, I've decided that many of his temples also double as workshops, the kind of domain where clerics and inventors might both have something to do. Some other flavorful things that you'll want to consider for your deity are their sacred colors and sacred animal. As for sacred colors, Cladis Pretium doesn't have any particular sacred colors, but a lot of his clergy show a fondness for wearing grease-stained clothes, showing that they are being productive and trying to build something new. As for sacred animal, this one is easy. He prefers the dog, the bigger and fluffier the better, because as we all know, a dog is man's best friend. Another flavorful question to consider for your deity is the idea of their realm. What do they call home? And in the case of Cladis Pretium, I actually didn't give him a realm, but rather have him labeled as a traveler. As someone who seeks to make the back half of his life as interesting as possible, Cladis does not want to tie himself down to a particular location, but rather wishes to explore the whole of what reality has to offer. A final flavorful detail that you can include for your deities are their divine allies and enemies, which is essentially a question of the gods and goddesses that they either get along with or have some serious problems with. In the case of Cladis Pretium, I see him getting along very well with deities like Caden Kalian and Brigg, enjoying both the adventurous impulses of the first and the dedication to beautiful craftsmanship from the second. As for enemies, I think that Cladis would naturally clash with individuals like Asmodeus, because one of the core elements of Cladis' teachings is the idea that you shouldn't stay in a singular place just because that's where you're supposed to be. One final flavorful element that you will need to consider that kind of stretches into the second category of deity design is what's known as divine attributes. Now, essentially, divine attributes are connected to the unique background raised by belief found in Lost Omens, Gods, and Magic. Now, to be entirely honest, this is an area of deity design that would not apply to Cladis Pretium. He is a deity of the midlife crisis. Most of his worshippers are going to be at least halfway through their life, meaning that it's kind of unlikely that the raised by belief background would work for a worshipper of Cladis Pretium, but just in case someone wants to maybe reflavor raised by belief to help picture a worshipper of Cladis Pretium, I'm going to go ahead and give him the divine attributes of strength and wisdom. Wisdom because age teaches you some things, and strength because, well, maybe you've just started working out again. The next section of deity design is going to be a little more technical and a little more detailed. This is called Devotee Benefits, and it represents some of the mechanical offerings that come for characters following a particular deity. In essence, each of the items that you're going to be picking here is going to be diving into the rules options inside of Pathfinder 2e and deciding which options become available to characters, particularly clerics or champions, following the deity that you have created. Now, I will say with Cladis Pretium, I have designed him to be rather flexible, as he's intended to oversee major changes that occur in the midpoint of someone's life. I want him to have a healthy array of options because his main intent is to push people to try new things at a point in their life where other people might be trying to prevent them from doing so. So for a lot of these items, I'm going to give Cladis an array of options, but there is a thematic and narrative reason that I'm doing that. Up first is Divine Font, where you have to decide if the deity offers the heal spell or the harm spell, or occasionally a deity can offer both, and in the case of Cladis Pretium, that's what I'm going to do. One of his clerics has the opportunity to choose heal or harm. Either one is a valid option. Up next is Divine Sanctification. A deity can present their follower with the choice of sanctifying themselves to holy, sanctifying themselves to unholy, or possibly refraining from sanctifying themselves. Some deities will go to an extreme, declaring that their follower must sanctify themselves in one direction or another, and some deities actually refuse to let their followers sanctify themselves. I wanted to give Cladis Pretium's followers an array of options, so for him, his followers can choose to sanctify themselves as holy or unholy, but they are not forced to sanctify themselves. However, I am going to add an important note that the majority of Cladis Pretium's followers do choose a divine sanctification of one or the other, rather than remaining neutral. My reasoning behind this is, Cladis is overseeing a major change in someone's life, and the choice to sanctify yourself in one direction or another would be an example of the kind of dramatic change that the Church of Cladis Pretium does encourage. Next up, you need to choose a divine skill that clerics and champions of the deity will gain access to, and if the project card Holy Symbol didn't give this one away, we're going with the crafting skill. And in keeping with the deity that has a fondness for workshops, his favored weapon is going to be the light hammer. The next set of details worth considering are the domains that a deity grants access to, and you will need to pick 4 domains, and if you want, you can include one alternate domain, which is typically taken from the options presented in the book Lost Omens, Gods and Magic. Though, to be entirely honest, with the themes that I'm going with for Cladis Pretium, I'm pulling a lot of his content from Gods and Magic in this particular case. His 4 main domains are Change, Sorrow, Dreams, and Passion. Dreams and Passion are found in the core rulebook, whereas Change and Sorrow are both options presented in Lost Omens, Gods and Magic. And for an alternate domain, with Game Master approval, I think the Time domain could also kind of fit with the themes this deity is intended to represent. At the end of the day, I wanted the power set that Cladis Pretium offered to be related to that struggle of trying to find purpose as you look at the back half of your life. Along with domains, you also get to pick a set of 3 cleric spells that Cladis Pretium offers specifically to clerics in his service. Now, in this particular instance, there is a lot of variety among the various deities presented in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In general, it seems that you want to pick 3 spells of different levels that are not on the divine spellcasting list, and almost all of the spells that I've seen selected for different deities tend to be 5th level or lower. I think there are a few examples that go higher than that, but generally speaking, I think this is intended as a way of adding some flavor to the lower level spells available to clerics. In the case of Cladis Pretium, I wanted to give his followers some skill in the workshop and some additional ability to travel, so I went with Fleet Step as a 1st level spell, Dismantle from the Advanced Player's Guide as a 2nd level spell, and Creation as a 4th level spell. Now, all of those items represent kind of the major things you want to consider when it comes to the mechanical devotee benefits of a deity, but there are a few other niche options that you want to be aware of. One of them is the Avatar spell, which admittedly is only going to apply to very high-level characters. But basically for every deity, you want to determine what kind of movement their avatar would have and what kind of attacks their avatar would offer. The rest of the effects of the Avatar spell are, thankfully, pretty straightforward. In the case of Cladis Pretium, for the movement of the Avatar spell, I'm giving the Avatar an impressive 70-foot base movement speed because the Avatar is finally driving around in that dream project car that they've been working on for years. As for attacks, I'm going to keep it relatively simple, offering a Mechanic's Hammer that can be used both as a melee and ranged weapon, but with the notable added benefit of offering the hammer's critical specialization effect, essentially knocking a target prone on a critical hit. The last thing to consider, and this is strictly optional and very much a Game Master fiat question, is a concept that is introduced in Lost Omens, Gods and Magic, which is Boons and Curses, or different ways that a deity may show their favor or disfavor on a follower. Boons are ways that a deity can temporarily bless their follower to show approval for what the person is doing, whereas a curse is a way of a deity showing their disapproval on someone who is failing to meet their standards. This is not a strict part of the whole of Pathfinder 2e, very much optional Game Master element, but in the case of potential boons for Cladis Pretium, I'm going under a title that I'm calling Teaching an Old Dog New Tricks. Cladis Pretium encourages his followers to try something new, something that they've always dreamed of doing, but maybe haven't had the courage to do in the past, and shows his favor on those who are willing to make such a valiant attempt. Each of these possible effects would be tied to a character who is trying to do something new, and in most cases something they are completely untrained in doing. Possible boons could include fortune effects, or allowing a character to behave as if they were trained or maybe even expert in a skill the first few times that they try it, or possibly even temporarily granting the equivalent of an archetype dedication feat to someone as they try out a new career. A final potential boon that Cladis could pass out could be a simple, dramatic reduction in retraining times for someone who is trying to shift to a new focus in their career. As for curses, I'm going with the broad title of The Times Have Changed, where Cladis frowns on those who refuse to try something new and get stuck in their ways. In this instance, one of his followers could see their overall level of proficiency decreasing, or could suffer misfortune effects if they refuse to try new things. Again, these options would be strictly by Game Master Fiat, but it is something you want to consider if you're thinking about designing a deity for Pathfinder 2e. But that is a quick overview of the different things that you want to consider if you are designing a deity for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, I seriously doubt many people are going to need a god of the midlife crisis in their campaign setting, but by all means, if you want to use Cladis Pretium at your table, go right ahead. For the most part, this is just a way for me to celebrate turning 40 with all of the wonderful members of this community. Seriously, you all are amazing, and it is fantastic that I get to do this. Let me know what you think of Cladis Pretium, the god of the midlife crisis, or let me know if you've had the opportunity to design a deity for Pathfinder 2nd Edition in your home game. Let me know how that went. Drop down to the comments section and be a part of the conversation, because that is truly the best thing you can do to support this channel. I love getting to interact with you all. Don't forget all the other YouTube stuff. Like, share, subscribe. Check out Discord, check out Patreon. But as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Have a wonderful day.